So I'm going to actually start off by allowing them to introduce themselves. So we'll just go down the list. Yen Pang.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Yen Pang. I'm the contracts manager for the county, and I specialize in designing RFPs.
Hi,
Good morning, everyone.
I'm the procurement manager for the county.
Go ahead, Lulu Lopez.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am Lulu Lopez, Procurement and Contract Administrator for the San Mateo County Human Services Agency. Thank you for having me.
Mary Trainer.
Hi, my name is Mary Trainer. I am the Procurement and Contract Services Manager for the Human Services Agency.
Brad Johnson.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Brad Johnson. I am the Contract Management Analyst for BHRS, Behavioral Health and Recovery Services.
And then our fabulous facilitator, Ellie Dolman.
Good morning, everyone. Ellie Dahlman with the County Manager's Office, Budget Policy and Performance Team.
So we approximately have a 15 to 20 minute presentation going over as much as we can to talk about the contracts and procurement process itself, kind of what each of the departments do, and then really want to get into having you ask us questions that we may be able to answer. One of the things that's important to remember is this will be recorded today. So we will be recording this session so that we can put it online and others can view it over the course of time. We hope to be doing this again in person at some point, but we wanted to make sure that during this time, people have something that they can look back at to be able to review. Other than that, I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and get this started and allow people to go through it. So Yen Pang, go ahead and start.
Thank you, Robert. So first off, we're going to discuss how the county determines the needs for the RFPs. The request for proposals are issued based on county needs that have been identified. The needs are often determined by services that are required and desired by the populations that we serve throughout the county. Once the county determines a requirement is needed, it issues an RFP, a request for proposal, to obtain the best possible solution from the vendors. The other component is the funding source. They might be funding from grants, state or federal funds, and all of these come with requirements that have to be adhered to in order to be compliant with the funding program. These requirements are incorporated into the RFP and then into the subsequent contract. The county is required to comply with the Public Procurement Code in order to do these RFPs and solicitations, and any other applicable laws and regulations, including Ordinance Code. Chapter 2.83 of the San Mateo County Ordinance Code addresses the purchasing procedures the county is required to follow. This includes competitive solicitations and sealed written bids for goods and services. RFPs are conducted in accordance with these codes and the administrative memorandum approved by the county manager's office. It is a legal requirement that formal RFPs are made public. In the County of San Mateo, the formal contract thresholds are those that are valued at $200,000 and above. We still encourage departments to post informal RFPs, but that is a request, not a requirement. It is a requirement of the county to use public purchase, the public purchase website, to facilitate submissions for all RFPs and bids. County departments are not required to individually contact organizations to invite them to propose. The responsibility is on the interested organization to keep track of the public posting website to see if there are RFPs of interest. If a department does reach out and send an email saying an RFP has been posted, it is done out of courtesy, and it is not a legal requirement of a public competitive solicitation. The best way for a community-based organization to keep track of these items being posted in public purchase is to register as an entity in the website and sign up for notifications. In the past, there had been a discussion related more to the conflict of interest around the development of an RFP. As I mentioned, the county is required to comply with the Public Contract Code and any other applicable laws and regulations, including the Local Ordinance Code. Chapter 283-170 is the conflict of interest statement of the San Mateo County's Ordinance Code. And it basically states that anyone who helped with the development of the RFP is then excluded from proposing for the same project. There has to be a separation of interest. The requests for proposals are conducted in accordance with the Ordinance Code and also the memorandum that is approved by the County Manager's Office. Now, anyone who is a writer or co-writer for the RFP has to sign a solicitation advisor document, which is a conflict of interest document. So if a CBO is to advise on an RFP, they would have to sign that, and that would also exclude them from proposing on the subsequent RFP. Often departments want to get RFPs out on the street as quickly as possible. If there is time, a department may issue a request for information before developing an RFP, if they would like to seek information from the community. But this is not a requirement of a competitive solicitation process. Please keep in mind that doing an RFI will add several weeks to months to the RFP process, and departments may also lack the staffing to take on this option. There had also been some queries previously about the number of forms that an RFP has attached to it. Now, I am in the process of cleaning up the RFP process and the documents that go with it, but any form that we request is because it's required. It might be on the local level or up to the state or federal level, but if the documents are in there, it does mean that it has to be completed in order for the proposal to be compliant. That's the end of my presentation, but we did receive one question that is related to the question and answer process in the RFPs, and I wanted to address that now. So the question was stating that the Q&A period in the RFP solicitation process is too short, and that they were requesting that this process be changed to allow emails after the Q&A period until the due date of the RFP. The Q&A time period for an RFP is set so that it kicks off the RFP development process for the proposers, and that everyone gets the same opportunity to ask questions that might arise during the proposal development. Once the questions are received, it takes a few days for the departments to prepare and publish a response. I'm emphasizing this to point out that all questions that are received during the Q&A period are answered and then published publicly. The closing of the Q&A period is to ensure that all the entities have the same information available to them for the development of their proposal. A Q&A period that is a few days from the RFP deadline is not recommended, as the answers posted might change the direction of an organization's RFP response. As a public entity and following the public procurement rules, we cannot have side conversations related to the RFP that is not publicly shared. So it is not possible to allow for private questions and answer process after the Q&A period is closed. Now, with all of this said, the design of an RFP schedule is very important in order to get meaningful results. I am currently redesigning the RFP template and will then be offering RFP training classes to county staff. The classes will include a component about setting an RFP schedule that would allow enough time to create a meaningful proposal. This means if a 1 to 2 page response is requested in the proposals, that having the RFP out on the street for a shorter period with a shorter Q&A period would be appropriate. It also means that if departments are expecting a 30-page proposal response, that they should consider leaving the RFP open for longer with a longer Q&A period. That's it from me, and I would like to hand it over to Lulu.
Thank you, Yan. And hello, once again, I am Lulu Lopez, Procurement and Contract Administrator for the Human Services Agency. And along with Mary Trainer, Procurement and Contract Manager, we will go over the 5 different contract types that are used here in San Mateo County. First of all, there is the board level, and then there's the division level, a memorandum of understanding, the small dollar amount waiver, and then there are grants. Next slide, please. The most complex and time-consuming of all contracts are usually the board-level contracts. For the most part, these agreements are for dollar amounts over $200,000. Although depending on the funding source, even though they might be much lower dollar amounts, they might still require approval from the Board of Supervisors and must go before the board. For all agreements of dollar amounts above $200,000, a request for proposal process must be conducted in order to open up competition and a way of ensuring fairness. All documentation must be reviewed and approved by County Council at every step. County Council always reviews the RFP before it is posted. It reviews the RFP process, the agreement, the memorandum or resolutions, everything that goes before the board. The signing authority for this board level contract can only be the Board of Supervisors. No entity or employee of the county has authority to sign an agreement for an amount over $200,000. To appropriately conduct this board level agreement, on average, it can take from 65 to 90 days or up to 3 months. Of course, depending on the complexity of the services and interest from vendors, the process can take longer. Next slide. The division level contract is a contract that is always under $200,000. This agreement does not require that an RFP be conducted, but there must be some type of informal solicitation in order to ensure that the county achieves the best possible price for services or products. Informal solicitations must be sent out to a sufficient number of potential providers to ensure that at least 3 quotes or proposals are received. Therefore, 3 quotes must be obtained and documented. This can be done through an email, a form that records the procurement process, or through a web search in which a screenshot is saved and printed as documentation. Because the dollar amount is under $200,000, the director, who is the department head or a designee of the department, does have authority and can approve and sign the contract without going before the Board of Supervisors. For example, the division level contracts that are under $200,000 at the Human Service Agency, where I work, are signed by our agency director, Ken Cole. Because this agreement does not include the RFP step, this type of contract can be completed a little bit faster. The estimated time is usually about a month or up to 6 weeks. Now I'll hand it over to Mary.
Hello again, everyone. Again, my name is Mary Trainer. So I'm going to start by talking about contract waivers. This type of contract is actually a waiver of a contract, and it applies, is able to be used in certain conditions. It applies only to services costing less than $5,000 over a fiscal year. That can include services performed over time and billed on multiple invoices, as long as the aggregate amount is not over $5,000. And this option is only available if services are low risk. And that means that services for children and youth cannot be placed on a contract waiver. And this is also only available if a contract is not required by law. And our next type is grants. A grant is generally an award of financial assistance from a state or federal government to a recipient to carry out a specific public purpose. A grant of any dollar amount must be approved by the Board of Supervisors. The grant agreement and resolution that accompanies it to the Board of Supervisors must be approved and reviewed and approved by County Council prior to execution. In some cases, grants will require a separate agreement, or the terms of the grant may be covered in the grant application that was accepted by the grantor. The agreement and/or the application will determine how those funds are able to be used. State and federal grants are often redistributed by the county, and that means that the recipient of the funds may be a sub-recipient. The selection of contractors for sub-recipient agreements over $200,000 follows the same board level process that Lulu detailed, and they will include an RFP and board level approval. Finally, we'll talk a little bit about sub-recipient agreements and some of the reporting requirements that go along with those types of agreements. Again, all of the rules regarding sub-recipients and what they can and cannot do are determined by the funding source, in this case, federal funds. And so sub-recipient agreements will include additional requirements, including reporting requirements that we've included a sample of here. So an audit requirement may mean that they're required to provide for timely audits as required by the uniform guidance, which governs subrecipients. There will be performance monitoring and reporting requirements, including monthly reports to the county. Also, there will be aggregate quarterly and six-month progress reports. Additionally, these contracts require reporting on board level performance measures that are included in all of the board level contracts. And finally, there's an additional level of financial monitoring and reporting required for subrecipients. This includes filling out the federal single audit report and submitting to the county. And then additionally, there will be monthly cost reports that may include specific data types or forms related to the services being performed. As you can see on the slide, this is an example where a form is required by the contract, and that will be submitted monthly with the financial cost reports, as well as any supporting information. And with that, I'll hand it over to Brad.
Okay, thank you. Again, I'm Brad Johnson, Management Analyst for BHRS. I'll be walking you through the next few slides, which detail different elements found in each of our contracts, starting with the scope of work, which does the following: defines services and deliverables, ensures we are meeting the needs of our clients, provides a mechanism to monitor quality and value, and identifies staffing requirements. Here's a list of some of the elements you'll find in the agreement scope of work: target population to be served, description of services, referrals and discharge process, staffing requirements, licensing, training, volunteers, goals and objectives and/or deliverables, monitoring and reporting requirements, and other administrative requirements. Next, we have source requirements for an agreement, which includes reporting and performance measures. I'll go through some of the reasons why we measure performance, some sample performance requirements, and the methods used to monitor. Why we measure performance? Well, many times what we measure and why is a requirement of the source or the funding. There are mandated federal requirements. San Mateo County has their own requirements under their procurement and contracting policies and procedures. These performance measurements and requirements are mandated to ensure quality of service and the success of the program. Reporting outcomes are dependent upon the program source. It's important to note here that for our board level agreements, $200,000 and above, is our board of supervisors and county manager who determine the performance measure for each contract. Some examples of state and federal mandated requirements are timely access to services, reporting of service data, and client surveys. There are also grant requirements that differ for each individual grant, but typically include reporting on client demographics, unduplicated clients served, and linkages made to other services. Next, we have some of the many methods used to monitor services. We have monthly, quarterly, and yearly progress meetings, Service reporting, monthly, quarterly, may contain units of service, number of clients served, and linkages to other services. Year-end reports, summary of accomplishments, site visits, quality standards, compliance with documentation, attestation forms, incident reports, licensing, visit reports, staff credentialing, invoices that are adjudicated to the contract, satisfaction surveys for clients and family, and audits. This final slide is a sample of the grant reporting requirements. Again, the reporting outcomes are specific to each individual grant, but you will find this type of language in each of the grant agreements. Program outcomes and monitoring. Service delivery will be measured against and monitored based on the outcomes listed within the grant. The county shall have the right to adjust, modify, or change performance reporting measures and agreed upon by both parties and approved by county in writing. Reporting. Contractor will be responsible for collecting, entering, tracking, and reporting the data for program participants and outcome measures related to each services provided by the contractor. Contractor will submit reports in a format specified by the county. Contractor will submit reports that include the performance outcomes. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. So that concludes the informational presentation for today's training. I did want to just mention the next virtual training that the county will be offering will be specifically on public purchase, and I will make sure to send all this information to you all by email, along with a survey to let us know, give us feedback on how the training went today, and also to share any additional questions that you have. But now at this time, if you have any questions for the panelists, we invite you to use the raise hand function, or also you can submit questions, written questions, by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to submit questions there. So it looks like we received one question that was answered, and the question was, are you using RFP 360/W for proposals? And Yen, did you want to answer this verbally for folks as well?
Yeah, for this county, we only use a software called Public Purchase. It's available online as a website, and I have provided the link there in the chat. That is also the training that we will be offering on October 29th, which is how to register your organization into Public Purchase.
Great. Thanks so much for that. I don't
Ellie,
see any.
Can you go over how the raised hand feature works so that people know how to raise their hand?
Sure. I believe if you click the button at the bottom of your screen, the participant icon, a window will pop up and you should see a raise hand button there to be able to do that. And if you click the raise hand, then we will see your hand is up and you can ask a question verbally. And again, the Q&A function. You can also type it into the chat to all the panelists and we can answer through there. But maybe we'll just give a couple more minutes for any additional questions that folks have regarding contracting and the request for proposals process. And Robert, I don't know if you had any other comments to add to conclude.
So I do know one of the questions that came up quite a bit and in the last time that we did this class was in regards to, you know, how does administration dollars work when it comes to federal grants, and how do we get that value placed in it when businesses have, CBOs being a business, have dollars that are attributed to all the different programs that they serve. I do know that the federal government does have a cap at this point in time. It's part of their OMB circular and it is at 10%. I think that one of the ways that we've answered this question before, the panelists up if they want to say a little more, but it's really looking at what you are considering administrative costs. So for example, if a supervisor might be supervising 2 programs and you can establish that 40% of that person's time through a time code is attributed to the program, my suggestion would be is that actually becomes part of the program budget and not the administrative budget. If there are things that are associated to space, where you have an actual space that are associated to a person doing the work, and you can actually show dollar value of that space, I would put that as a program expense rather than an administrative cost. I would try to keep my administrative costs to really be those costs that are overarching to your entire agency, whether that be the secretaries in the front or the admin assistants or the administrative people or the executives that are part of the group, rather than trying to make everything part of this administrative piece, because it is only allowed at 10% for most federal grants. Do any of the other panelists have suggestions in regards to how to make that work? Okay.
I think your suggestion is very good, Robert. And the other thing to add would be to detail if there are other fees and costs, to have that in the fee proposal, to really document, to say, you know, if it's the rental space and program costs, and also what is included in the program costs, and also what's included in the administrative fee, so that for audit purposes later on, it's very well detailed.
Other questions?
I don't see any hands raised, and it doesn't look like there have been any other questions submitted to the panel. We received one other question before the event that was just asking if a recording and the PDF of presentation materials could be provided to the group, and we will definitely email out that information to all of you who attended, and we also plan to post it on the county website for folks who may not have been able to attend today, so that they have access there.
You know, one of the things that I would also suggest for CBOs is really having a conversation with the departments that you're contracting with, and really going over the contract, and really making sure that there's an understanding of what all the aspects of that contract are. We are trying to make sure, and we've, posted some best practices for the departments here. We've gone through some contracting advising with some of the departments to try and make sure that we are doing a better job as a county to communicate with you the things that we're looking for, why we are looking for them, and how you can be, better part of that process. And we want to make sure that that communication is heard, and that you guys out there can really be communicating with those departments and making sure that that the clients that we're all trying to serve, because we're all trying to serve the same people, are really getting the services that they need and in the ways that they need them. You guys are on the ground doing the work. A lot of the contracting staff that you see here are the people that are putting the contracts together and working with program managers. And if it takes one of the contract staff that you see here, or one of the people putting a contract together, to work with you and that manager to make sure things get done properly, please take advantage of those conversations as often and as much as possible.
Great. So I'll just ask one more time to the panelists. We don't see any questions, but if you have any final thoughts or comments to add, otherwise we can wrap up today's training a little early and let you all get back to your work. All right. Well, we'll just close by reminding you of the next training happening Thursday, October 29th, all about public purchase. And I will email this information to you all, along with a survey where you can provide your feedback on how today's event went. And we just want to thank you again for making time to join us today, and hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you all soon.